Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Colors in the Steel by K.J. Parker. And this book made me regret not reading everything K.J. Parker a lot sooner. What a chaotic, glorious story it was. I'm going to be putting everything K.J. Parker ever wrote pretty high up on my priority list moving forward. But anyway, what is Colors in the Steel about? Bardas Leorden, our main character, he's an advocate sworn to defend his clients in court through fencing, because that's how things are decided here apparently. Which sounds like the setup for like a swashbuckling kind of story, except that Bardas is like a lush, a barely functional lush, 10 years past his prime. And in addition to that, he has a pretty complicated past which rears its head when the city of Permadale comes under siege, and he somehow ends up smack dab in the middle of all of it. In between all of that, we have the story of a warlord with an axe to grind, and a young woman who has vengeance on her mind through all of this. And that's just three of the main threads that run through this novel. There's a few other characters who are all up to their own shenanigans throughout this all. And yeah, that's in a nutshell what you can expect from Colors in the Steel. Um, this book was convoluted, layered, and I don't even know how to describe it. What you could call this plot, like from start to finish, it was just so chaotic. It was kind of like it was kind of like that Plinko game where you just drop balls and it's left to chance where they land. That's kind of what KJ Parker does here. He sets up these individual stories, these individual characters, and then they just run wild. And it's a miracle to see how it kind of all comes together in the end, because somehow it did. Which just shows how how great a writer he is, that he's able to bring together this chaotic mess into something that was actually pretty coherent and pretty interesting by the end of it. And it just goes to show how great a writer he is and how well he is at planning this stuff. And one of the things that I really also loved about this book, in addition to how chaotically it was planned and executed, is just how realistic it is. And I'm not just talking about the fact that he incorporates a lot of like very modern modern elements into his world, but in terms of things like commerce and economics and mechanical engineering and all these different things, like he touches on throughout the course of this book. Not just that, like it's mainly from the cast of characters that we have. Like, this is not your fantasy story where everyone they're sort of hyper excellent at their job, so that they set out on an objective and they're able to achieve it even if they go through some form of adversity. Like, these are not necessarily super smart people or super skilled people or people who have faith on your side. These are everyday people who, they're often struggling, they're often barely competent enough for the job that they're doing. They're not spectacular at it, but they're not the worst at it either. They just are. And that primarily describes the majority of this cast, I would say. There's some few specialists in here, but their specialist in this case is a very fraught term, because what they actually bring to the table is debatable, especially as the story progresses and it seems like they have less and less control or less and less knowledge or understanding of what exactly it is they're doing. So there's that aspect of it. Like, it was just well done. Like, these characters, because of the fact that they're so down to earth, essentially, like, they're barely equipped for the situations that they get thrown into under the best of circumstances. They often have their own objectives and ideals and their own wants and needs that kind of muddy the situation even more. And of course, it all intermingles and you have these conflicting interests and all these kind of things that happen throughout the course of this novel. Like, it's just, like I said, chaotic mess is the best way to describe it. But at the same time, it's just so coherent. It flows well. Everyone has more or less a clearly delineated story by the end of it. you don't necessarily see that throughout. Like sometimes you spend too much time with one character, sometimes you spend not enough time with another. It flows, but it, like I said, somehow by the end of it, it just kind of works in its own crazy way. So there's that. One of the things that I also liked about this, and this seems to be like a recurring thread with KJ Parker, is that in terms of like the fantasy element, there's not too much of it. He's similar to GGK in that the books could almost read like historical fiction, with just a little splash of fantasy thrown in there to keep things spicy. And in this case, we have that take the form of a magic system where the magic users will spend the entire book insisting to everyone who brings it up that what they're performing is not magic. But strange things happen. Strange things happen, and as the story unfolds and it gets stranger and stranger, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And it works at the same time. Because there is an explanation for why it doesn't add up. But it works at the same time. It's crazy. Like, really well done. I don't think this entire thing would work, honestly, if KJ Parker wasn't such an entertaining writer. Like, he has a gift to write these, to take characters and make them just interesting and compelling in their own ways, and to insert just these different, just these bits of dialogue and these moments with them that really make them fun to read about, make them interesting to read about, in not necessarily great ways. Like sometimes when you're just reading of these people, there's an element of morbid curiosity involved in it. Like one of my favorite characters from this book and this series so far, because I have read past the first book at this point, is an individual who shall only be known as, who I will only ever refer to as Graveyard Bait. And when you get to that particular line, that particular description, like you'll get it. You'll get why that just sticks in my brain. Like that's just such a hilarious way of describing someone. Anyway, moving on from all of that. Needless to say, from all of this, like, it's chaotic, it's entertaining, it's interesting in the sense that a train wreck is interesting in that you have no idea what's going to happen next other than a train wreck. So you keep your eyes glued to it to see what happens. That was kind of me with this book. Like I was just hooked from start to finish to see how this could possibly all turn out. And it turned out pretty well, pretty interesting in a hilariously backhanded kind of, I don't even know how to describe this ending. Like the ending of this book is one of the more interesting endings I think I can recall reading in any fantasy book. Which is an amusing statement in and of itself, in that regard. But overall, in terms of the story, like, it was just well done. There's so many things left open, so many unusual things that happen, so many threads that going into the next book. Like, I had a lot of questions, I had a lot of theories, a lot of things to think about, and that's kind of where this book leaves you, with a lot to think about by the end of it. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on Colors in the Steel. I'm not sure if this is, I would really recommend this as a starting point for anyone with KJ Parker, but he is a very interesting, it is a very interesting book. Like, if you're a fan of his, it's definitely worth checking out. I think in terms of publication order, this might have been his very first series. But he is an established writer before this, because we know who he is now, and we know he's been writing for quite a while. So it's not like this is a debut author, and you're dealing with some of the common pitfalls you would expect with a debut author. It's more like he just had he just wanted to do something chaotic, fun, and just see what happens and he somehow brought it together in the end, in a rather fascinating way. And yeah, that's kind of where I am with this book, with this series. If you're interested in it, feel free to check it out. If you're a fan of his, definitely want to put on the docket at some point. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.